Day 30 of the war with Hamas finds IDF forces tightening circle around the terrorist Hamas capital in Gaza City. Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi was inside Gaza coordinating the army drive to end Hamas rule in Gaza. And ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
Day 30 of the war with Hamas and IDF forces are tightening the circle around Gaza City. IDF operations carried out by combat engineering forces and tanks led by the Gaza Division mapped out buildings and cleared the area of explosive devices while blowing up tunnels as the IDF advanced, tightening its circle around the terrorists' main stronghold in Gaza City. The IDF is focused on its ground offensive in northern Gaza, but also carried out incursions in southern Gaza to prepare the area for future stages of the war. Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi was inside Gaza to plan the next moves with officers. Ground troops continued the offensive in the northern Gaza Strip overnight. Infantry and tank forces led by the 460th Brigade encountered numerous attempts by Hamas operatives to come out of tunnels to attack troops. The forces killed several gunmen and located tunnels for demolition. Dozens of Hamas operatives were reportedly killed. Defense Minister Gallant issued a direct threat to Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar.
אנחנו נגיע אליה. אנחנו נגיע אל יחיא סנוואר ואנחנו נחסל אותו. אני אומר כאן לתושבי עזה, אם תגיעו לפנינו, זה יקצר את המלחמה.
Meanwhile, Israel has opened a new humanitarian corridor to the south and is allowing at least 100 trucks of food, water, and medicine to enter Gaza daily. In a troubling development on the border, Hamas tried unsuccessfully to smuggle wounded terrorists to Egypt in ambulances meant for civilians. Israeli officials also uncovered oxygen concentrators for tunnels used by Palestinian terror groups inside a truck carrying aid to the Gaza Strip.
In his long-anticipated speech from his Beirut bunker, Lebanese Hezbollah terrorist leader Hassan Nasrallah failed to commit to enter the war with Israel. At the same time, Hezbollah has stepped up attacks on Israel's northern border, and ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
Lebanese Hezbollah terrorist leader Hassan Nasrallah failed to commit to enter the war with Israel. Speaking from his bunker in Beirut Friday, Nasrallah claimed no prior knowledge of Hamas's plan to attack Israel. But after Israel's declaration of war, he came to the aid of Hamas by confronting Israel on the Lebanese border and causing the IDF to divert forces from the south.
ما يجري على جبهتنا مهم جدا ومؤثر جدا. قد يبدو للبعض الذي يتوقع أو يطالب أن يدخل حزب الله سريعا في حرب شاملة وكاملة مع العدو قد يبدو ما يجري على الحدود متواضعا، ولكن لو نظرنا إلى ما يجري على الحدود بموضوعية سنجده كبيرا جدا ومهما جدا ومؤثرا جدا.
Disappointing Hamas and perhaps his own supporters, Nasrallah's apparent indication that he will try to avoid a full-scale war came shortly after the latest warnings from Israel.
ביחס לצפון, אני חוזר ואומר לאויבינו, אל תטעו בנו. טעות תעלה לכם ביוקר. טעות תעלה לכם במחיר שאתם אפילו לא מדמיינים.
אני אומר כאן, אם נסראללה יעשה טעות ויפתח במלחמה כנגד ישראל, הוא יחרוץ את גורלה של לבנון.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah has continued and even stepped up rocket fire toward northern Israel. Rocket sirens sounded Saturday morning in a number of Israeli communities in the Upper Galil, close to the Lebanon border. A number of rockets were also fired from Lebanon at the Rosh Hanikra area. There were no casualties in the incidents, with most border area communities having been evacuated. A Lebanese security official confirmed that for the first time, Hezbollah fired Burkan rockets, which carry heavy warheads, at an Israeli post. The IDF made no comment on the reports, and there did not appear to have been any casualties. The IDF retaliated with deadly force and accuracy. The army struck 2 cells of terror operatives in southern Lebanon as they planned to open fire at Israel with anti-tank guided missiles. The IDF said it also struck an observation post belonging to Hezbollah in the area.
And joining us now with the latest security update as Israel is tightening grip on Hamas stronghold in Gaza is former head of Shin Bet, Yaakov Peri. Yaakov, the IDF continues to have success tightening the circle around Gaza City, but recent days have not included something dramatic, a dramatic success. Are we in the days of slow, steady, and perhaps costly clashes and battles in the underground tunnels?
No, I don't think so. I think that this time the operation is done very cautiously. We are going slowly and as much as we can, surely, in order to avoid any casualties. We have lots of work still to do, and the army, the operation is done very, very slowly and very cautiously in order to avoid casualties.
Is it something they learned, do you think, from Tzuk Eitan, from 2014?
Of course, look, we have unfortunately, a lot of experience.
Yes.
And when you are experienced and you know whom are you fighting against, you have to be more cautious in order to avoid losses. And as you can see, the army is done gradually. First of all, the area is bombarded by aircrafts, and then we are checking what were booby trapped, and after that, the ground forces are entering in and finishing what they have to do. So it takes a lot of time.
Of course. Now, Yaakov, we're 30 days into the war, 30 days, a Jewish mourning period of days since about 1,400 Israelis were murdered by Hamas. Israel vowed to remove Hamas and is trying to do so. Is that goal still entirely realistic?
Well, you can eliminate people. You cannot eliminate an idea. And I'm sure that the Israeli army, can do the job. It can eliminate the people of Hamas, even in Gaza and outside Gaza. But in few years, a new generation, which is not active yet, will grow up and we will have to deal with them as well.
We all hope so. Now, we saw many of the Hamas terrorists on October 7th were really, really young, Hamas terrorists over there. Now, switching to the northern border, Hezbollah leader Nasrallah, he gave his speech from the bunker he had been in since 2006 when he made the mistake of attacking Israel. As of now, he says he's not fully entering the war, but Israel continuing the cross-border attacks. Israel's making Hezbollah pay a heavy price, but is not taking dramatic actions to stop the northern rocket fire. For how long can we tolerate this over there?
Absolutely. I'm not believing Mr. Nasrallah. He is not promising and not saying anything. We have to be cautious and we have to be prepared. That will surprise will not occur in the north. For the time being, he is not interested. He or Iran are not interested to pull Israel to two fronts, the south and in the north. But there will come a moment, and hopefully I'm wrong, that they will enter also into the circle in order to grab Israel to two fronts, northern and southern. Nasrallah never lied, but he is never saying the whole truth.
Keeping back, of course, he denied also many things, saying that nor Hezbollah, nor Iran, knew of the attack on October 7th. So we definitely have to stay close and listen there. Thank you so much, Yaakov, for joining us today, and to better times.
Better times. Thank you.
Here's a moment to invite all of you who haven't yet subscribed yet to join our app. We have many new viewers these days, and if you want to stay updated about everything going on in our region, join our app, ILTV News, available on all platforms. Israel continues to suffer rocket barrages every day. This is the hostages' families, with thousands more supporters are protesting for their fast and safe return. This is the IDF continues to publish more names of soldiers who fell in battle. And ILTV's William Sharon reports.
Central Israel was met with a heavy rocket barrage late on Saturday. Fortunately, the Iron Dome missile defense system successfully intercepted those, with no injuries were reported. Hamas retaliated by claiming the launch of Aish 250 long-range rockets towards Eilat, following sirens surrounding across the southern Arava region. Their statement cited the action as a response to what they referred to as a slaughter of the Palestinian civilians. Moreover, on Saturday night, thousands of people gathered at the renamed Captive Square in central Tel Aviv to show support for the families of 242 individuals held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. At the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, the demonstrators displayed posters of the hostages, emphasizing the urgency of their return. This as many families spent their second night in tents at the square as part of their ongoing protest.
I'm here for my brother and his family, his wife Shiri and two little boys. Ariel is 4 years old. Kfir is now 10 months old. We don't know where they are. We don't know what conditions they are kept in. I don't know if Kfir is getting food. I don't know if Ariel is getting enough food. He's a very small baby, small, 4 years old. And it should be stopped. It's a humanitarian situation, a war crime, and it should be stopped immediately.
Additionally, the IDF spokesman unit released the names of 4 soldiers who fell in battle in the northern Gaza Strip. Givati Platoon Commander Major Yehuda Natan Cohen, Givati Soldier Staff Sergeant Gilad Nachmia Nitzan, Givati Soldier Staff Sergeant Yonadav Raz Levinstein, Special Unit Shaldag Combat and Paramedic Master Sergeant Liora Razi, and Nachal Brigade Soldier Yehonatan Maimon. Baruch Dayan Emet.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is trying to accomplish the diplomatically near impossible balancing act by showing strong support for the Israeli war effort in Gaza against the strong opposition from Washington's Arab and Muslim allies. And ILTV's Steve Leibovich has more.
Making his second visit to Israel since the start of the war on October 7th, Secretary Blinken made clear the U.S. continuing ironclad support.
We stand strongly for the proposition that Israel has not only the right but the obligation to defend itself and to do everything possible to make sure that this October 7th can never happen again.
After leaving Israel, Blinken headed into a gathering with Arab counterparts in Amman, where he heard strong demands for a ceasefire and urgent humanitarian assistance to the Gazan population from Saudi, Qatari, Emirati, Egyptian, and Jordanian foreign ministers. Blinken said that he's trying to tie humanitarian aid to the hostage issue, and that could include a brief pause in fighting.
It's our view that a ceasefire now would simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th. Not a single one of the countries represented here or that met together today, or for that matter, pretty much any country in the world, would simply accept the slaughter of its citizens and do nothing about it.
Today, Blinken will be in Ankara to meet Turkish President Erdogan, who says he's so angry that he can no longer speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Ahead of the meeting, Erdogan implied that Netanyahu was worse than Hamas.
Netanyahu nasıl teröristse Hamas da teröristmiş.
Erdogan said that his foreign minister and intelligence chief would continue to talk to the Israeli side as well as Hamas and other Palestinian groups. This amid reports that the Turkish ambassador to Israel will be recalled.
Nearly 1 month into the war, Israeli travel advisory highlights risks and anti-Semitism issued a travel advisory urging Israeli citizens to exercise heightened caution when traveling abroad. This advisory comes as anti-Semitism reaches an all-time high, with attacks occurring in various countries and as pro-Palestinian protests continue globally. And ILTV's Devo Klein with more.
The National Security Council and the Foreign Ministry have issued a travel advisory urging Israeli citizens to exercise heightened caution when traveling abroad. The advisory comes in response to the increasing incidence of anti-Semitism and violent acts targeting Israelis and Jews around the world. Notably, it recommends refraining from displaying Israeli and Jewish symbols due to the surge in anti-Semitic incidents. The all-time anti-Semitism high and incitement has been alarming, with attacks targeting Israelis and Jews occurring in various countries, including those not typically associated with terror-related travel warnings. Key areas of concern include Jewish communities, religious and communal institutions, Israel businesses, and Israeli representations worldwide. In the French Lyon, a Jewish woman in her 30s was attacked in her own home on Saturday. The woman, who suffered 2 stab wounds, was discovered with a swastika painted on her door. According to a number of media reports in France, her injuries were not life-threatening, and she was receiving medical care in the hospital. Moreover, pro-Palestinian protests continue worldwide, with demonstrators calling for an immediate ceasefire and condemning Israel's military actions against Hamas in Gaza. Thousands gathered in New York, London, Berlin, Paris, Ankara, Istanbul, and Washington, D.C. to show solidarity with Palestinians. In Paris, where previous pro-Palestine gatherings were banned due to public disorder concerns, an estimated 20,000 people took to the streets, holding Palestinian flags with slogans like "Stop the Massacres" and "Ceasefire Now." And in Berlin, over 6,000 protesters joined the call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The demonstration followed Germany's ban on the activities of Hamas and the pro-Palestinian group Samidon, indicating the country's stance on the matter.
And joining us now is Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Flor Hassan Achum. Flor, let's start with, we're seeing an unprecedented warning by the National Security Council warning Israelis from traveling abroad. Is it really just as a precaution or truly something different this time?
Well, I actually think it's a bit of both, because what we're seeing across the world, especially in Western countries, is an unprecedented amount of incidences of Jew hatred, not just with the marches, but vandalism and attacks. In America, the FBI actually warned that even though the American Jewish community is 2.4% of the entire country, 60% of all religiously motivated hate attacks are on Jews. So that just tells you the extent of where we are. We saw over the weekend that poor Jewish woman getting stabbed in her home in France with a swastika on the door. In London, we're seeing incidences of harassment, of bullying, of attacks, of vandalism everywhere. In Canada, there's a new phenomenon that people are using called mezuzah mapping, which means that people are going around to see which houses are Jewish houses. And the Jewish community is very, very concerned. And so there is a lot to be concerned about. And in fact, what's really poignant is that a lord in the UK, a Jewish lord in the House of Lords called Lord Wolfenson, made a very, very emotional speech last week saying he has 2 children. One is in an army uniform because he chose to make his life in Israel, and his daughter walks around London with a Magen David around her neck, and he's more concerned with his daughter in London with a Magen David than with his son in an Israeli uniform fighting a war. And I think that tells you everything you need to know.
Definitely, it's unimaginable. Fleur, you mentioned it in light of the recent attack on a Jewish woman in Lyon in France. Can you shed light on the measures being taken to address such incidents? Because, you know, to ensure the safety of Jewish communities, we're hearing voices of Jews scared to go out of their houses. Shouldn't tell you where that throws us to.
Well, absolutely. And I don't feel all the Jewish leaders that I've spoken to around the world, I don't think I've heard one of them say, we're fine. The police are protecting us. I'm not saying that the police are not protecting them, but I don't think Jews feel protected. Just as one example, in the UK, a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine from Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Gideon Falter, was in a truck with pictures of the hostages on the side of this trucks, and he was asked by British police to turn off the light on the side of those trucks because it was offending the Free Palestine from the River to the Sea marches. And so a lot of people are feeling that the police are not protecting the Jewish community, or if they are, they're not doing it enough.
Yes, now, you know, some of the very large pro-Palestinian, or if I may, anti-Israel protests we're seeing are seen in countries, you know, whose leadership has expressed unwavering support for Israel, like the United States, like the UK. the French and the Germans. Its citizens, let's say, aren't so much. How do you explain the difference, the big difference, the big gap over there?
Well, I think that all of the countries where you see these marches are countries with very large Muslim populations, which unfortunately have been radicalized. I mean, I have tons of Muslim friends from around the world who are regular people, moderates living regular lives. But we can't forget that there's a large amount of people that have been radicalized in all sorts of ways, social media amongst many, the rhetoric of certain radical imams. And so we shouldn't underestimate that a lot of these Muslim populations are really not populations who have integrated into Western values society. They very much keep the values of the mosques, of what they're preaching, and in a lot of the situations, it's hate speech, unfortunately. And I think that the world hasn't dealt with it. They've been kicking this can down the road. They've thought that this is a way to be diverse, politically correct, to let people, express themselves. But ultimately, their expression is one of quietening, shutting us all down, because their values are very, very far from liberal Western values. And again, I don't want to generalize, because there's a lot of wonderful Muslim moderates who have shown support for Israel in these times. But what you're seeing on the street is a really lethal combination of the radical Islam and the radical left, who really haven't understood what it is that they're standing with.
Yes, and it's already spread all over. Fleur, lastly, how do you view the role of really social media in either fueling or countering anti-Semitism during times of conflict? What can they do? I mean, we're witnessing extreme amounts of incitement, of misinformation, of, posts in the name of free Palestine, in the name of free speech. Nobody's fact-checking, monitoring this. Everyone can pretty much write whatever they want. What can be done over here in this, in this arena?
I'm not sure that I'm very optimistic about social media. I'll tell you why. Most people on social media are living in an echo chamber. They're basically following voices that they believe in or they follow naturally. It's very, very hard to penetrate the voices who are anti. And I think that our battle is not there. 15% of the public really, really hate us, want us dead, and we should make no bones about it. These people are not talking about a two-state solution or peaceful resolution with the Palestinians. They believe in the river to the sea, meaning the eradication of the state of Israel. They don't want to see Jews here anywhere, and in fact, they want to kill us all. So that's the 15% haters. Then you've got the 15% lovers, who are our friends, who are Jews around the world, who are a big part of the evangelical Christian community, who are just moderate people who are sensible and are seeing that people who abduct babies are bad. It's as simple as that. People who want to rescue babies who have been abducted are good. So that those people who understand what evil looks like and what good looks like, those are moderate people. But then you have 70% of people in the middle who either don't care or they're undecided. And our social media efforts should really be targeting those people in the middle, not the haters. We're never going to win with them. The lovers already are on our side. It's the 70% of the people in the middle. And the best thing that we can do is to highlight the stories of the innocent civilians who've been taken by Hamas. That is what we should focus on. Put a face to this massacre and put a face to it with the hostages.
Definitely. We still have a very long way to go. Fleur, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight throughout the country, with lows of around 17 degrees Celsius or 63 degrees Fahrenheit. And tomorrow, mostly clear skies and steady rising temperatures set to reach highs of 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and of course, do not forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all of the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Amit Harari. Stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.